Hey guys, today is May the 4th, which is obviously Star Wars Day, and it's also the 25th anniversary of the release of The Phantom Menace, which me and my family are going to go watch today for the first time on the big screen. I know this is a horror page, but I thought I'd do something a little bit different, and seeing as though it's Star Wars Day, incorporate Star Wars and horror together. Now, do Star Wars and horror really go? Here's my video of my top 10 horror moments in Star Wars. Before I start, I do want to say I am not a Star Wars nerd at all. I've watched the films, I've watched the sequel trilogy once. I don't like the sequel trilogy. Prequels are my favourite, just because I'm of that generation, but I really love the originals as well. But I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd like my partner is, so just bear with anything that I say. You disagree with anything, don't come at me. This is just a bit of fun. Feel free to let me know your opinions and thoughts, and if I missed something in the comments. But Star Wars fans and Star Wars nerds, doing my best. I'm just trying to celebrate Star Wars Day. Also, some of these words are extremely hard to pronounce for someone with dyslexia, so I apologise for any mispronunciation as well. To the video, my top 10 horror moments in Star Wars. This is also in no particular order as well. The first moment that we have comes from the animated show Rebels, which I absolutely loved. I think it's amazing. So if you haven't already checked that out, it's over on Disney Plus. Go check it out. It's amazing. 4 seasons, and it's really easy to get into, and it's just amazingly animated, and the story is brilliant. And it comes from the episode Out of Darkness. So on a mission to meet an informant and pick up supplies, Hera and Sabine must work together to avoid being devoured by ferocious Fernox dwelling in the caverns. Fernox are silicon-based creatures originally indigenous to the jungles of the planet Anaxis. They are hurt by sunlight and can only live under the cover of darkness. However, they are immune to the light that isn't solar-based. Ezra summoned the mother of all Finrocks, but had to tap into the power of the dark side to do so. He was left unconscious and shivering by the unexpected power of the dark side energy he had summoned, just in order to control this beast for a matter of seconds. I think these creatures are really cool looking. The eyes glowing, and the way that they portrayed them in this episodes of Rebels Out of Darkness is really creepy. It gave me kind of alien-esque vibes, in the sense where they're hiding in the darkness, and sometimes you can just see things moving but not necessarily see all of it, and I really liked that. The mother of all Finrocks as well was absolutely huge and ferocious, and even the Inquisitor struggled against it to some extent, and I thought that was really cool. And the fact that you have to tap into the dark side in order to summon that monster kind of obviously gives you they're not exactly great creatures, and you have to use dark energy to bring out these dark creatures. So I thought that was a really cool thing. And to say it's a kids animated show, I thought it was pretty dark when I first watched it. I really enjoyed it. So staying with the animated theme for number 2, but this time we're going on to Clone Wars. And now I haven't seen all of Clone Wars. I've just been dipping in and out as my partner's been watching it. But this is the episode of The Lair of Grievous. Now we all know General Grievous is a badass. He's really cool. He takes lightsabers off Jedis he's killed. And I mean, that in itself is just proper slasher-esque villain right there. And his arms, there's multiple arms twirling them Jedi lightsabers, is just, I mean, he's creepy in itself. But with this episode, it has an incredible use of suspense. So infiltrating a Sith garrison is certainly no easy feat, but when the location happens to be the castle of General Grievous, things get a lot darker. He turns out to be quite a slasher villain for Kit Fisto and his Padawan when they are locked inside his fortress, and they have to try and survive. He has droids that he controls and sends off, and then he can repair himself pretty easy, so he's literally like Michael Myers and Jason. You think you've got him and you've beaten him, or he's down, he's lost an arm, he's lost this, he's lost that, and then next minute he comes back after being shot 6 times, and he's there around the corner yeah, and what? Obviously not shot 6 times, but you get my point. It's droid version of Michael Myers, which is really cool. For my next one, we are moving on to books, and this one is Dark Legends by George Mann. So this is kind of like a Star Wars version of the Grimm fairy tales. If the book Myths and Fables is filled with stories that might have put Luke and Leia to bed at night, Dark Legends is the collection of spooky tales and ghost stories that would have kept them awake. So this has 9 stories. These stories are The Orphanage, Buyer Beware, The Predecessor, Blood Moon, Dark Mirror, The Gilded Cage, A Life Immortal, The Sleep of Ages, Baccarat, and The Bitter Harvest. It includes kidnapping Force-sensitive children, murderous masks, and forbidden rituals. Dark Knight, on the Star Destroyer, but also a peek into the history of the galaxy itself. There are far worse things out there than Sith Lords. Once again, sticking with the theme of books, we are going on to Death Troopers by Joe Schreiber. This just got a trailer release as well for a video game. I'm pretty sure it's a fan-made video game, but oh my god, it looks like the perfect horror and Star Wars game combined. It's basically zombie troopers, which I think is really cool, and the design for them is so amazing. I love it. I would love to see a movie of this. So Death Troopers is a novel by Joe Schreiber that was released on October 13th, 2009, and it takes place about a year before A New Hope. When the Imperial prison barge Purge, temporary home to 500 of the galaxy's most ruthless killers, rebels, scoundrels and thieves, breaks down in a distant, uninhabited part of space, its only hope seems to lie with a Star Destroyer found drifting derelict and seemingly abandoned. But when a boarding party is sent to scavenge for parts, only half of them come back, bringing with them a horrific disease so lethal that within hours, nearly all aboard the Purge will die in ways too hideous to imagine. And death is only the beginning. The Purge's half-dozen survivors will do whatever it takes to stay alive, but nothing can prepare them for what lies waiting on board the Star Destroyer, amidst this vast, creaking emptiness that isn't really empty at all, for the dead are rising, soulless, unstoppable, and unspeakably hungry. I think that premise is so cool. And like I said, I definitely would love to see that as a movie done by Disney, but I don't think they would because it's too dark for Disney. And it's definitely a very gory story. The fan-made video game looks absolutely phenomenal though, and it looks like that's going to be like your way into the Death Troopers other than reading the book. And number 5, we have the prequel to Death Troopers, which is The Red Harvest. It was originally titled Black Orchid. This reveals the origin of the virus from the original book. The era of the Old Republic is dark and dangerous time as Jedi Knights valiantly battle the Sith Lords and their ruthless armies, but the Sith have disturbing plans, and none more so than the fulfillment of Dark Scarberus's fanatical dream, which is about to become a nightmarish reality. Unlike those other Jedi sidelined to the agricultural corps, young Jedi whose abilities have not proved up to snuff, Trace possesses one extraordinary Force talent, a gift with plants. Suddenly, her quiet existence among greenhouse and garden specimens is violently destroyed by the arrival of an emissary from Darth Scarabus. For the rare black orchid that she has nurtured and bonded with is the final ingredient in an ancient Sith formula that promises to grant Darth Scarabus his greatest desire. But at the heart of the formula is never-before-seen virus, thus worse than fatal. It doesn't just kill, it transforms. Now the rotting, ravenous dead are rising, driven by the bloodthirsty hunger for all those living, and commanded by Sith Master with an insatiable lust for power and the ultimate prize, immortality, no matter the cost. So basically, Red Harvest and Death Troopers is about zombie troopers in Star Wars meets 28 Days Later meets Star Wars in a book. Again, can we please get these on movies? Because this would be brilliant to watch. And I think if you're a horror fan and you're also a sci-fi fan and you want to kind of like read something that's along them lines, then I do think that these books, Death Troopers and Red Harvest, would be a great introduction to that. Also, I know some of the High Republic books that have just been released, like Eye of Darkness, I think it's called, has very dark moments in it, and some creatures in it and torture and stuff like that. So definitely getting darker as they go along. At number 6, we have Rogue One. Now, when you say Rogue One and you think of horror or suspense or dark, everyone knows what we're talking about. We are talking about the hallway scene with Darth Vader. Darth Vader is the ultimate villain. He is Star Wars. My 10-year-old absolutely loves Darth Vader, which I don't know is a good thing or a bad thing. Obviously, you've got the moment in the prequels where he destroys the younglings, but I will say one of Darth Vader's most memorable moments is in Rogue One. during that hallway scene, and especially with the thematic lighting and music, it's just so ominous, so well filmed, and it's just so dark and amazing to watch. And it truly is terrifying. It's showing you why Darth Vader is the most terrifying villain in the galaxy. Number 7, we have a comic this time, and it is the Tales from Vader's Castle by Cavan Scott. Taking a cue from one of the original horror comics, a series of pulpy, over-the-top adventures, aka Tales from the Crypt, with a spooky Halloween-esque flavour featuring possessed spaceships to Dracula-inspired Dooku. So this has 6 issues. The first one being The Haunting of the Ghost, Count Dooku, Prince of Darkness, The Brer Witch, Night of the Gorax, The Terror of Darth Vader, and Droid Hunters. And this is both Tales from Vader's Castle Part 1 and Part 2, so they're both like in this little one. And I think, again, you want to read something that's a bit of the darker side of Star Wars. These comics are absolutely stunning to look at. I think we have at least one downstairs. They are just absolutely beautiful, and the stories are really well thought out. I'd have to say the whole idea of like Dooku being a vampire-esque, especially with like obviously Count Dooku, Count Dracula, and the Prince of Darkness, and to get inspiration from a truly amazing horror comic that sets so many things in motion, you know that they're going to be a bit dark and they're going to have that style and that aesthetic, and I think they're going to do really well, especially obviously, like I said, if you're getting inspiration from a classic and you're also taking stories from a classic sci-fi film that people love and one of the main villains, then you're bound to get some really, really interesting dark stories. At number 8, we are going back to the animated world, and we're going back to Clone Wars, and this time it is with the episode Legacy of Terror. So picture a zombie that can't be defeated by bullets, lasers, or lightsabers, and put a whole horde of them on Geonosia. After destroying a droid factory, Anakin and Obi-Wan must contend with a hive full of reanimated Geonosian warriors while pursuing one of the separatist leaders. Again, there seems to be this thing in Star Wars when it goes dark is zombies. Obviously because a lot of these warriors are droids or clones, and so you kind of can do that zombie-esque look with them, which I think is really cool. But when you're on a planet where things start coming back to life, but then you also put the limitations on it, like obviously Jedis use the Force and they use the lightsabers, so what happens when you have zombies that can't be defeated by bullets or lasers or lightsabers? How are they going to work then that? And obviously knowing Anakin, he's very powerful, especially in the Clone Wars. He started to get more and more powerful and getting closer to Vader, and it's really intriguing to see how that works out. At number 9, we actually have something from Legends, and this is Yoda, The Dark Rendezvous by Sean Stewart, and it is a Legends novel. The savage Clone Wars have forced the Republic to the edge of collapse. During the height of battle, one Jedi Knight escapes the carnage to deliver a message to Yoda on Coruscant. It appears that Dooku wants peace and demands a rendezvous. Chances are slim that the treacherous Count is sincere, but with 1,000,000 lives at stake, Yoda has no choice. The meeting will take place on Vijun, a planet steeped in evil. The challenge could not be more difficult. Can Yoda win back his promising pupil from the dark side, or will Count Dooku unleash his sinister forces against his former mentor? Either way, Yoda is sure of one thing: this battle will be one of the fiercest he's ever faced. With this one, it's Legends, so it's like more of a what if scenario, but I do know like obviously a lot of Star Wars fans love the Legends stuff. Like I really enjoy seeing Yoda fight, and I think he has a lot of skill, and obviously like he's in charge, so he's definitely powerful. So to be able to have a book like that and see him go up against Count Dooku, who is also very powerful and on the dark side, and to see them go up against each other with some sinister like cat and mouse kind of fighting, who's going to be telling the truth, who's going to be swayed. Dooku was Yoda's apprentice, so obviously Yoda's still going to care for him. He's going to want him to return to the light side. So does Yoda have what it takes? And what is Count Dooku really up to? So it's more of that sinister what if story of Star Wars, which I think is really fascinating and a good read. And again, another dark kind of thriller story to get into if you're into the Star Wars side, but you want something a bit darker. You've all probably been waiting for this one and wondering where it's going to place on my list. This one probably is in the right place. This one probably should be top for the most horrid thing in Star Wars because it looks absolutely terrifying. And that is the creature Abeloth. So Abeloth is top of this list of horror things in Star Wars. So Abeloth, self-styled as the beloved Queen of the Stars and also known as the Bringer of Chaos and the Destructor, was an extremely powerful force entity with dark side powers and immortality. She first lived as a servant, a mere mortal woman who served the powerful ones on a jungle planet over 100,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. Throughout her life she became the mother and kept the peace between the father's wearing son and daughter and became a loving member of the family. Unfortunately, she was still mortal and grew old, while the father and their children lived on and feared she would lose her precious family. In a desperate attempt to hold on to the life she so loved, she drank from the font of power and bathed in the pool of knowledge. Her actions corrupted her, transforming the mother into a twisted immortal entity known as Abeloth. She's the overarching antagonist in the Star Wars Expanded Universe / Legends continuity, serving as the main antagonist of Fate of the Jedi series. This is very much a Lovecraftian styled monster, like even from the pictures she looks creepy as, and I think this is like the biggest injection of horror in Star Wars in regards to the actual like aesthetic and look. It's very, like I've already said, it's very much Lovecraftian cosmic entity being thing that's overpowered and is like on the cosmic galaxy level threat and power, which in regards to Star Wars is massive and really works, and it's really interesting to see how that goes. Obviously Luke fights her as well amongst other people. They try and subdue her and capture her, and she escapes, and sometimes she's not seen, but even her influence is felt through the Force, and I think that again is something that's quite terrifying, that you don't even have to be in her presence for her to affect you. She's that powerful. She's like Star Wars' greatest monster, and I think again it's like a really cool thing, and it looks absolutely terrifying. So like the artwork for this Legends character is amazing, and I think it would be really cool to see a monster Star Wars movie, but again Disney probably would green flag that at all. Overall, for my top 10 horror moments in Star Wars, I think my favourites have to be the Finn Rocks, because I really enjoyed that episode and I absolutely love Rebels, and also the Death Troopers concept, because zombie Death Troopers going all out gore is absolutely like an amazing idea. It's so cool, and I would happily play that video game if I had the chance. Who knows, maybe one day when Disney sort themselves out, we might get a bit more of a darker Star Wars story. Thank you for watching my random Star Wars video on a horror YouTube page, but I just wanted to celebrate Star Wars Day and the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace. Let me know what you thought of this video and my top 10. Let me know if I've missed any moments, or that you have some special moments you wanted to talk about, or you disagree with some of my moments. That's absolutely fine, but like I said, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, so don't come at me too harshly. I'm still just a Padawan. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification for more videos, because more are definitely coming. Thank you again for watching this video and all my other videos, and until the next one, stay horrid.